Hi there. This video is an exam paper walkthrough of the Eduqas GCSE Mathematics Higher Tier Component 1 paper from autumn 2023. This paper is worth 120 marks in total, and this is the first video of 6. It will focus on questions 1 to 6, which account for 19 of these marks. Eduqas Component 1 papers are non-calculator papers, so a calculator should not be used. A little disclaimer: there may be more than one way to answer a question. The methods shown in this video are not the only way some mathematical skills can be applied. Okay, let's get started. Question 1. Ivy mixes lemon juice, pineapple juice and orange juice in the ratio 1 to 2 to 7 to make a fruit drink. So I'm just going to label that ratio because lemon, pineapple and orange juice in the order that it's written. Ivy has 330 ml of her fruit drink in a glass. How much pineapple juice is in Ivy's glass? So we're going to share that 330 ml into this ratio here. So we need to find out how many total parts. So we have 1 plus 2 plus 7. So there are 10 parts in that ratio in total. So we're going to divide 330 by 10, which means each one part is worth 33 ml. So now we can multiply the part of the ratio that applies to pineapple juice by 33. So that's why I labelled my ratio to make it nice and clear. It's the middle bit of the ratio, so it's worth 2 parts. So 33 times 2 is 66. So it's 66 millilitres. Question 2. The shape below consists of a square surrounded by 4 semicircles. The diameter of each semicircle is 12 centimetres. So we have our square, we have our 4 semicircles that are identical, they're congruent. It tells us the diagram's not drawn to scale, so we know we can't measure anything accurately from it. It asks us to work out the area of the shape and to give our answer in the form a plus b pi. So we're giving our answer in exact form, which is helpful because this is a non-calculator paper, and when we're working with circles we usually need to use our pi button, but this is telling us we can leave all of our calculations in terms of pi. So to find the total area we need to find the area of the square and then the area of the 4 semicircles. So let's start with the area of the square. So what it tells us in the question is that the diameter of each semicircle is 12 centimetres. So from one side to the other through the middle. So that tells us that the side of our square is also 12 centimetres. We know that all 4 sides on a square are equal. So to find the area, we're going to do 12 multiplied by 12, which is 144 centimetres squared. Now we need to find the area of the semicircles. So we're working with area of a circle. And the formula is pi times radius squared. Well, we know that the diameter is 12 centimetres. So the radius is half of that. So the radius is 6 centimetres. So the area of a full circle would be pi times 6 squared, which is 36 pi. And that's centimetres squared. Now we're dealing with semicircles, which are half of the circle. However, 2 halves make a whole. So that's 1 full circle and that's 1 full circle. So we need 2 lots of that area. So 2 times 36 pi is 72 pi centimetres squared. Now we need to find our total area. So we have 144 centimetres squared plus 72 pi centimetres squared. So 144 plus 72 pi centimetres squared. So this is now in the form that they want for our answer because A is 144, B is 72, and we've got pi there. So this is what I'm going to write on my answer line. 144 plus 72 pi. Aizan has a block of stainless steel with volume 700 centimetres cubed. The stainless steel has a density of 7.5 grams per centimetres cubed. Aizan says the block has a mass of less than 5 kilograms. Is he correct? Now before we click yes, know or cannot tell, we need to be careful here because it tells us we have to show how we decide. So we're going to do some working out to then make a decision on whether or not his statement is correct. So we're working with volume, density and mass. So we're working with density, mass and volume. So you might be familiar with this formula triangle. A lot of people use it to scaffold this particular skill. So I'm going to complete a triangle with what I know inside it. So I know that the density D is 7.5. So I'm going to put 7.5 there. I know that the volume V is 700. So I'll put 700 there. And then the mass we don't really know anything about apart from his statement. So the mass is at the top there. So now I'm going to calculate the mass. So the mass is equal to 7.5 multiplied by 700. Now this is a non-calculator paper, so I'm going to multiply this by 10 to make my life a little bit easier, and then I'm going to carry out that multiplication. So I'll do it here. So 700 multiplied by 75, 5 times 0, 5 times 0, 5 times 7. 0 placeholder because I'm moving into the tens, 7 times 0, 7 times 0 and 7 times 7. Then I'm going to add those two together. So 0, 0, 5, 12, 5. So that is equal to 52,500. But I multiplied by 10 to make it so I was working with integers. I need to reverse that now. So I need to divide by 10. So it's 5,250 grams. Now in his statement, he said 5 kilograms. Well, I'm working in grams here. So I need to convert from kilograms to grams. So 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. So if I divide this by 1,000, we get 5.25 kilograms. Well, 5.25 kilograms is more than 5 kilograms. So we can say that he's not correct. Question 4. Oliver and Kian bake cakes. The mass of Oliver's cake is between 400 and 500 grams inclusive. The mass of Kian's cake is between 200 grams and 300 grams inclusive. Complete the inequality to show the least and greatest possible differences between the mass of their cakes. So the least and greatest possible differences. Okay, so the least possible difference would be the difference between 400. So if Oliver's was 400 and Kian's was 300, because that would be a difference of 100 grams. The greatest possible difference would be if Oliver's was 500 grams and Kian's was 200 grams, because that's a difference of 300 grams. Question 5. Jen is mixing some paints to make brown paint. She's made orange paint by mixing red paint and yellow paint. 40% of the orange paint was red paint. She then mixes the orange paint with some blue paint in the ratio 20 to 21. So that would be orange paint and blue paint to then make the brown paint. What fraction of the brown paint is red? So she made orange paint by mixing red and yellow paint, and when she mixed red and yellow paint to make orange, 40% of that was red. So 40%, so this must have been 60%. Okay. She then mixes the orange paint with some blue paint in the ratio 20 to 21. So we've got orange to blue, 20 to 21. And this is what makes the brown paint. But we need to figure out how much of that brown paint is red. Okay. So we're going to find out 40% of this 20, this part of the ratio for brown paint that's orange. So we're going to find 40% of 20. Well, 10% of 20 is 2. So 40% we multiply by 4. So it's 8. Okay. So it's 8 there for that part of the ratio. Now, so 8 of those 20 parts are the red paint. So we're going to see how many parts in total. So 20 plus 21 is 41 parts in total. 8 of those parts are red paint. So we've got 41 parts in total for brown paint, but 8 are red paint. So that's my final answer. Question 6. The diagram below shows an equilateral triangle and a square. So we've got our equilateral triangle with some dimensions labelled and a square with some dimensions labelled. Tells us the diagram's not drawn to scale, so that means that we can't measure anything directly from it. Use an algebraic method to find the value of x and the value of y. You must show all your working out. So they've said we have to use an algebraic method. So we're going to be using the algebraic expressions and forming and solving equations to find out the values of x and y. So let's start from the beginning. We're working with an equilateral triangle. And I'm going to start with this equilateral triangle because it only has the variable x. The square has x and y, so I need to find one of those before I can work with this. So I'm going to start here, I think. So an equilateral triangle, what we know is that all 3 sides are equal. So 2x add 3 must be equal to 8. So we're going to start there. So we're going to solve this 2-step equation. So I'm trying to isolate the x. So I'm going to start by subtracting 3. So that becomes 2x equals, and then when I subtract 3 from the right hand side, 8 subtract 3 is 5. Remembering to do it to both to balance the equation. Now we have a 1-step equation. 2x is 2 multiplied by x. The inverse of multiplying by 2 would be to divide by 2. So 2x divided by 2 is x. And then on this side, 5 divided by 2 is 5 over 2. I'm going to work with it as 2.5. I'm going to go straight to my answer line and put x equals 2.5 on there as well, just so that I've filled that out and I don't get confused with my working out. Okay, let's look at the square then. So what do we know about a square? Well, a square, all 4 sides are the same. So that tells us that 7x subtract 5y must equal 10. So let's start with that. 7x subtract 5y must equal 10. Now we know what x is, so we can substitute that value in and form an equation to solve for y. So 7 times 2.5. I'm going to do that down here, guys. 7 times 2.5. So I'm going to times that by 10. So I'm doing 7 times 25. 25 times 7. 7 times 5, that's 35. 7 times 2 is 14. That's 17. So that's 175. But I times by 10. So I would need to divide by 10, so I get 17.5. So 17.5 subtract 5y equals 10. Now I'm aiming to isolate y and solve to find its value. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to subtract 17.5 from this side. When I do that, it eliminates the 17.5, but I still have negative 5y. It's important that that minus, that negative, stays with the 5. It's attached to the 5. And then when I subtract 17.5 from this side, I get negative 7.5. Now negative 5y is negative 5 multiplied by y. The opposite of multiplying by negative 5 would be to divide by negative 5. So negative 5y divided by negative 5 is y. I need to do the same on this side. So negative 7.5 divided by negative 5. Well, a negative divided by a negative becomes a positive. And then I'm doing 7.5 divided by 5, which I'm going to do here. So 5s into 7 is 1, remainder 2. 5s into 25 is 5. So y is 1.5. And we're going to pop that on our answer line.